Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network. Any opinions or comments made by any guest are their own, and they do not necessarily reflect any of the presenters or network's opinions.
Whatever or whoever it is that haunts that house, the manifestations are the most powerful and evil in their experience. They all mention nameless horrors.
This is Malcolm Robinson and you're listening to the Paranormal UK radio network, the UK's biggest paranormal network, and this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young.
Hello and welcome to the show. Thank you for that introduction, Malcolm. I thought it only right that Malcolm Robinson introduces his own show. Okay, right. If anyone would like to contact me at any time, my email address is davidyoung2qn@yahoo.co.uk. davidyoung2qn@yahoo.co.uk. And of course that's all one word. Okay, today's guest is Mr. Malcolm Robinson. Most people in the paranormal world will know who Malcolm Robinson is. His latest book is called The Sauchie Poltergeist. I'd just like to read a short part of the foreword by Darren W. Ritson. Malcolm Robinson is, in my opinion, one of Scotland's most dedicated and prolific paranormal investigators and authors. And of all the paranormal researchers, ghost hunters and psychical researchers I've ever known, Malcolm is the one I have actually known the longest. I first became aware of Malcolm and his research group, Strange Phenomena Investigations, SPI, back in 1993, in my early days of active paranormal investigation and ghost hunting. By 1994, Malcolm and I were corresponding on a regular basis using good old-fashioned pen and paper. Yeah, I think we all remember those. Barely. Okay, Malcolm's latest book. On the back cover it says this is undoubtedly the biggest poltergeist case of its kind in Scotland, if not the United Kingdom. Not only were the poltergeist effects witnessed in the family household, but they also followed the poor unfortunate little girl to her local school, where the poltergeist was equally disruptive. The credibility of the witnesses to these bizarre events consisted of 2 local doctors, a local minister, a number of Church of Scotland ministers, all who were stunned to view the astonishing events in the Campbell household. Researcher Malcolm Robinson takes a look back at this impressive 1960 case and his reinvestigation of it. Malcolm managed to track down some of the witnesses, and their impressive testimony is included in this blockbuster of a book. Now, joining me on the show once again is Juliet Gregson to help me out a little bit and maybe keep me out of trouble. So we'll just drag Juliet in now. Hello, Juliet. How are you doing?
I'm alright, thank you. How are you, David?
I'm absolutely fine. Pleased to be out. Well, we're not been in lockdown really. I haven't been in lockdown, but it's just pleased that it's easing off a little bit anyway, and the weather's improving and everything's hunky-dory, and perhaps we can all start going somewhere again soon.
Oh, definitely. Blackpool's getting busier. Pleasure Beach opened up yesterday, so it wasn't busy.
Oh, well, you weren't down in your bikini then?
Good God, no, I'd frighten the natives. No, it was... Blackpool will get busier, it's just at the minute it's sort of opening up again. But, yeah. You know, it does need, it is a tourist destination. It's going to take a while. It's like it's not just here, it's anywhere that's had shops or restaurants or hotels. It's just going to be a bit of a long haul, I think.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, I actually dread to think I'll be walking around with people wearing masks, but yeah, that's my problem.
Right, now, who have we got on tonight?
Yes, we've got, well, you introduce him, go on. And then we'll go and find him.
Good point. Well, to be honest, we could have an hour, we could have 2 hours, and we still wouldn't cover everything to do with the man that is
Absolutely
Malcolm Robinson.
Mr. Malcolm Robinson himself, yeah. He's got a new book out, which I think we'll be spending most of the time talking about.
That'd be good.
The Sauchie Poltergeist.
Let's see how he pronounces it as well.
Yeah, I think it's Sauchie, or he'll probably say it's wrong, but
probably.
But anyway, I think we better not waste any more time. We'll go and have a chat with Malcolm, shall we? What was that noise that came up on my computer? Did you hear that?
No.
Oh, it's all right then. It's just me.
It never goes smoothly, does it?
No. I'll tell you what. Let's prise open this coffin and see if we can find Malcolm.
Yes, please.
I am Dracula. I bid you welcome.
Oops, wrong coffin. Sorry, hang on. Hello, Malcolm. Welcome to the show.
Hi, David. It's a pleasure to be on your show tonight.
And it's a great pleasure to welcome you back. You were on, I think it was the second show, wasn't it, that I ever did, and I was pretty nervous back then. I mean, I'm not quite so nervous now, but it still gets to me sometimes. But,
no, it's great to be back on, and it's nice that Juliet's there as well.
I was just about to say Juliet's with us as well.
Hello.
But,
no, thank you, David. Malcolm, good to hear you again. Not seen you, it feels like forever. I mean, I think it was Outer Limits, I think, the last time I saw you.
Yes, it was. Was that in Pontefract, that one?
It was?
Yeah, that was Pontefract, was it? That was a change of venue one.
Yeah, I think because Philip was still a bit ill, so he lives in Ponty. So I think you guys decided it would be easier rather than the Hull, because it was the first time I'd attended, and it was like, wow, this is really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's just outside of Hull, isn't it? It's kind of to the left a bit for our international listeners, people in the US, etc. If you come to Britain and you look at Hull, which is on the east coast, the northern east coast, you come in a bit, and that's where Pontefract is. I think I've got that about right, haven't I?
Yeah, I mean, Chris Evers has done a wonderful job in getting all the speakers over, and obviously we're still in the midst of this COVID-19, which is affecting a number of conferences, not just here in the UK, but right across Europe. It's affected my conferences as well.
Yeah. But anyway, Malcolm, we've got to talk a bit about you, because Hastings has lost you recently, hasn't it? And you've gone back home to your homeland.
Yeah, that's correct. After 23 years living in England, initially London for a few years, then Carshalton, then Sutton, and then latterly in Hastings. I've moved back to Scotland here. That would be the end of March 2021, and I now live in the town of Sauchie, which is famous for the Sauchie Poltergeist, which fingers crossed we'll speak about later. But yeah, I mean, I've had a lovely 23 years in England. The English people are absolutely brilliant, and so many conferences, so many laughs. Hastings is a beautiful town, it really is, you know. We stayed in the old town, and it had, you had the Beatles Day, one day of all Beatles music for bands from all over the world. You have the Pirate Day. Hastings holds the world record for so many pirates in one place at one time, you know. So well over 14,000 it was. And you have the Green Man Festival where everybody dresses up in green, and the town is buzzing in the summer, you know. Yeah. And it's going to be it's a shame to leave it, but I'm back home. My family's here, my daughters, my granddaughters, and my aims for me being back now is to really kickstart SPI in Scotland. So bang on with the conferences, bang on with the local meetings, investigations and skywatches and Bonnybridge and Fife. So I've got a lot on my plate, and it's great days. Looking forward to them.
That's excellent. Yeah, I'm sure Hastings is going to miss you though. I mean, I was lucky enough to be able to come to a couple of your small pub events that you had, and they were very good. I think the only downfall for me was actually find somewhere to park and having to chase all the way across town to get there.
I remember that, David. Yeah, I mean, Hastings is notoriously bad for parking. It does have car parks, but you're paying through the nose for it. But yeah, locally in the streets, you know, you're more chance of seeing a Yeti driving a London bus. You know?
Yeah, I know. I was driving around for about an hour trying to find something to park, and we ended up right over the other side of town. And Jill and I were chasing across the town trying to get there. And of course, we missed the beginning as usual.
Yeah.
But
I must admit, Malcolm, I've been reading some of your posts since you moved back to Scotland. Do you have a paparazzi photographer who takes your pictures? It seems that way, because I thought he's either got a really long selfie stick or somebody else. Enlighten me.
No, I mean, today, there's some beautiful walks and bicycle rides around the county here in Clackmannanshire, central Scotland. And I was out today visiting an area called near Gatmorton Dam. It's a man-made dam here in Sauchie near Alloa. And also Robert Ferguson, my friend, has got a lovely horse, and we went up to the stable. So it's good to get out in the countryside and have a good walk and get some fresh air in your lungs.
You look happier on the pictures. It was like, and here's Malcolm and a horse. Okay. You look absolutely ecstatic to be home, and it shows.
Well, thank you, Julia. I mean, last year was a very bad year, not just for everyone worldwide, but it was more so for me. I sadly lost my mother and father in December, a week apart, and I just did not want to know anything about UFOs or the paranormal. I turned down so many radio shows and that. But now that I'm back in Scotland, it's time to get back on the horse. Yes, it's still sad losing parents, but being a spiritualist, I know I will see them again in the spirit world. I firmly believe that. So, time to get back on the horse, time to do shows like the lovely Dave Young and yourself, Juliet, and just crack on,
So that was your horse you were getting on there, in those photos?
It's my horse, no.
No, that's all right. That's not stupid. Anyway. But
it was a lovely picture. That's what I was.
It is. There's a really nice picture of you sitting on the bench there. I thought was really nice. You should have that as your new photo, I think, on Facebook.
Yeah, that Robert Ferguson took that. The chap that took it before I got into UFOs, David. I was at a crossroads. I was playing with a band at the time. I was only about 16, 17, 18 years of age. And although, yes, I was still heavily involved in the UFOs and paranormal, I was still at the grassroots at that time. But I was playing in a band. We did rehearsals. We played Alloa Town Hall. And I decided, and Robert was in, the chap that took that photograph, he was in the band. He was the bass player.
Oh, right.
And I failed to turn up for a meeting, one time, a rehearsal, sorry. And I think that was it. I just decided, no, it's UFOs for me. And I still got the guitar. It sits in the hallway. I pick it up after a few drinks and try and sing. But, you know, the neighbours are all cleared away to Venezuela, you know.
I mean, how many chords can you play?
How many chords?
Yeah, do you know many?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I know the repertoire, the A, the A7 diminished, D minor, D7, B minor, all the usual chords. Not the status quo 3 chords, A, B and D, you know.
No, I just wondered, you lost me on the first one, but I just thought, it's something I always wanted to do, play guitar, and I've had a couple in my time, but I've just never put my mind to actually learning to play them, you know. Really, one of my big regrets in life, that is, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you're still young enough, David, to pick it up and go there. I mean, I've written over 300 songs, and out of that, probably only 6 is any good, you know, but it's all about just enjoying yourself and just, you know, if you can sing and play a bit, great, you know, it's fantastic.
No, I could never actually get my fingers to work properly, so... Anyway, we don't want to talk about music, do we? We've got to talk about, well, I think we'll concentrate on Scottish ghosts tonight, and in particular, your new book.
Yeah, I mean, it's my new book, I think it's the 8th one, I can't remember, called The Sauchie Poltergeist. And it all surrounds a young girl called Virginia Campbell. Now, David, I was only 3 years of age when the actual incident occurred. It occurred in 1960. I was born in 1957, so you're talking to an old guy here. And but as
you're younger than me.
as I grew older, I had heard tell of this crazy, bizarre poltergeist, and as I was going through my teenage years and really getting involved in the subject, I says, I've got to get involved in this. I've got to really try and find out what's going on and find out if there's any truth or validity to this Sauchie Poltergeist. So I've done 3 investigations onto that. And the first one was 1984, followed by one in 1987, and latterly last year, which was to get more information for the build-up of this book. Now, during those 3 investigations, I uncovered classmates of Virginia Campbell, which we'll come to in a moment because that forms part of the story. So I did a lot of digging, and I'll tell you about that as we go through the story. But the story essentially starts back in 1960, when Virginia Campbell and her mother Annie came over to live in a small town of Sauchie in Clackmannanshire here in central Scotland. Now, she didn't want to go. She was happily, she had her friends in Moville, a little town called Moville in County Donegal in Ireland. Her school was there, her friends were there, her little dog Toby was there. But no, she had to go over. So she went over with her mother. Now, her father, he had to stay back in Moville to sell the family farm, and he was going to come back later. And her mother, she was working as a kind of cleaner in nearby Dollar Academy. And so they went over to stay with Virginia's mother and with 2 of her brothers. That was her brother Thomas and his wife Isabel, and their children, Margaret, she was 9, and Derek, 6. So no sooner had they arrived over in Sauchie than Virginia and her niece Margaret was lying in bed, and strange thumpings and bangings and rappings and sawing noises were pervading the whole room. And they're going, what the hell is this? Honestly, they thought it was mice or rats. And so they jumped out of bed and ran down the stairs. And as they were running down the stairs, behind them was the sound of what sounded like an old medicine ball, those big medicine balls you got back in the 50s and 60s in gymnasiums. It was thump, 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 thumping down behind them. And they screamed into the living room, and they spoke to Isabella and Thomas and her mother, Virginia, who was there, and they said, there's strange things happening in their room. And of course, being young kids, the mothers and her sister didn't believe them. So she says, come on now, get up the stair, come on, stop this nonsense, get up the stair. So they took them up the stair, they put them back in the same bed, they shared a double bed, Virginia and Margaret. And no sooner had the mother put them down in bed than the bed head started to vibrate and bang, and the sawing noises. It was like someone with a saw, David, sawing a piece of wood. And her mother and her sister knew full well, oh my God, what the hell is going on here? So they decided to put Margaret in the next bedroom in a single bed, but the noises still happened. Now, that night and subsequent nights, there was the usual strange things associated with a poltergeist, David. There were the bangings and rappings, scratching noises, there were footsteps all over the house. Nobody was there. Nobody was making these footsteps. There was a disappearance and reappearance of household objects. They went to find something. It wasn't there. It turned up elsewhere. And things got so bad that they called in the services of the local reverend, a chap called Reverend T.W. Lund. Now, this is a man of the cloth. And he I dare say that he felt that, there were no truth in this, but boy was he in for a shock. He attended the family dwelling. He went up to Virginia's bedroom, and he heard and saw a number of things. One of the things he saw was, as Virginia was lying under the blankets in her bed, lying very still, the bed covers started to ripple, as if you had a stone and you threw it into a mill pond and you've got all these ripples. She wasn't doing it, Juliet. She had her arms by her side, and she wasn't doing it. Then it got so bad that they actually had to call in a local doctor. 2 doctors actually, a Dr. Nisbet and a Dr. Logan. And when Dr. Logan came into the bedroom, he was absolutely astonished to see a linen chest. Now, back in 1960, you had these big linen chests that always sat at the foot of your bed. And these contained, like say, extra blankets and pillows, etc., in case you got cold. Now, that was actually against the wall. It started to move slowly of its own accord across the linoleum of this bedroom, making a scratching sound as it did. And the lid of this linen chest started to fly up and down. Flap up and down, bang, 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 in front of this local doctor who's never seen the likes of this in his life. And I should also point out that when Reverend Lund was talking to the girl in her bed, there was a pillow next to Virginia's head, and suddenly a depression, like an invisible secondary head, depressed onto this pillow, and you could see that it was like the shape of a person's head. And then the pillow underneath Virginia's head spun round, 90 degrees, spun round. Now, I'm not finished with this story yet, and I'm sure I've not even got to the juicy parts yet.
I'm picturing this as you're explaining. I'm listening with that, and I'm like, my grandparents used to have like a bed. I was thinking, yeah, my grandparents had one of them, and...
Well, it sounds like one of these films you've seen, isn't it? With all the those types of things happening.
Well, this is why it stands alone. It stands the test of time. It's been Scotland's best poltergeist cases. But guys, there really are a hell of a lot of good cases in Scotland. But not only that, Virginia and her cousin Margaret was getting pinched on their body, and nobody was doing it. It wasn't each other as well. And what happened next was there would be doors opening and closing of their own accord. Now, as if the whole thing couldn't get any worse, it did. Because not only were these events happening in the school, in the house, it followed her to school. It followed her to a local primary school. So what I'm about to relate to you is just a few, 4 instances. There was one occasion when, if you can imagine, David and Juliet, back in 1960, in any classroom, you had crammed in the kids, you had 40, 50 kids in a classroom. You had the big blackboard, you had the big wooden cane to point to the blackboard. Well, on this occasion, the teacher, Margaret Stewart, had given an essay for all the kids to do, so all the kids, their heads are bent over their jotters and they're writing away, apart from one little girl, Virginia Campbell. Virginia Campbell had her forearms pushing down on top of the desk lid, and the teacher looked up, and she was looking at the sea of these small kids, sea of small faces, all busy writing away, apart from Virginia, and she went, "Virginia, what are you doing? Stop that at once. Stop that now, stop that." And as soon as the teacher said that, Virginia lifted her forearms off the desk lid, and the desk lid just was flapping up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And at that point, a desk which was next to Virginia's, an empty desk, no child was sitting on it, rose up into the air about 2 inches and fell back down. On another occasion, Virginia approached the teacher's desk. She had finished an essay. She says, "There you go, miss. There's my essay." And just then, there was a teacher's cane, a wooden cane that she pointed to the blackboard. It was lying flat. And it started to shake. It started to shake, and it started to shudder, and it started to vibrate. Then it stood up on end and thump, thump, thump down on the table. And at that point, now back in 1960, the teachers had a big, big, heavy wooden table. These things were sturdy, guys. They really were. It lifted up several centimetres from the floor, and whereas the teacher's stomach was in the front part of the long part of the desk, it spun round 90 degrees, and her stomach was now in the narrow end of the desk. And at that point, a bowl of flower bulbs, which is on an adjacent table, woof, smashed into a wall with imaginary hands just throwing it into a wall. You can imagine the pandemonium in that classroom. All the kids were shaking their heads off, So the teacher went to the door and she says, "Okay, I better let this class out, my God." So the teacher went to the door and she couldn't open the door. It was like there was a a big heavy man on the other side of the door holding it back, saying, "You're not coming out." She says, "Malcolm," when I interviewed her, "Malcolm, I couldn't open the door. I could not open the door." And I had to make up a wee story to the class. "Oh dear, it's very windy today. Maybe the wind blew it shut." And then suddenly it just released, and all these kids scrambled out like a Tom and Jerry cartoon, like 6, 7 jamming in the door, trying to squeeze out of there, you know. Not only that, the neighbours also heard strange bangings and rappings coming from the house as well. Now, they took the child, young Virginia. "Oh, this is terrible. What can we do? What can we do? Okay, let's take her to maybe someone else in Dollar." That's a small town near Sauchie. And, you know, I've got a friend that lives in Dollar. Let's take her there, and fingers crossed, you know, it won't happen. But it did. It did. They took her to the house in Dollar, and the whole Dollar house was up in arms as well. And so that was quite frightening. And we did find, and I spoke to, during my research on this case, I spoke to many former classmates of Virginia. It's all in the book. And they said, "Oh, Malcolm, Christ almighty, Malcolm, oh my God, see it?" Yes, I saw it. I'll never ever forget it. So people have asked me, you know, well, what happened to the wee girl? Where did she go? And I'm sure that's one of your questions that I've jumped in there with.
Yes.
So I thought initially she may have went back to Donegal, County Donegal, and so we put some adverts in some local newspapers there that drew a blank. And then we found out, it's a long story short, but we found out she may have moved to Bedford in England. And I put an advert in one of the Bedfordshire newspapers, and also some Bedfordshire Facebook pages, you know. And then I got a few phone calls. I never mentioned the poltergeist. I just says, "I'm looking for the Campbell family. These are the names. Could anybody help?" And I got a number of phone calls and letters and emails, and they all drew a blank apart from one lady, an 84-year-old lady, says, she phoned me up one night. "Malcolm Robinson?" "Yes." "Are you looking for the Campbell family?" "Oh, yes." And she rattled off all the names, and I went, "Oh my God, that's just like them." So we proceeded to go in a conversation, and she says, "Now, I didn't offer up this information, guys, you know," and she says, "Malcolm, did you know she had a ghost, or a poltergeist, I think you call them, in Scotland?" I went, "Yeah, I think I heard about that." "Well," I'm eating the line through my teeth. Shouldn't do that. But I says, "Oh, I think I've heard about that." "Well, do you know it followed her to Bedford?" I went, "Really?"
No.
And she says, "Yes." Now, Malcolm, she says, she's not living in Bedford anymore. She's living in a small town adjacent to Bedford called Kempston. I went, "Oh, fantastic." And I knew I had nailed it. This was the girl, you know. If only I had spoke to Virginia prior to the book being finished, it would have been a lovely tail ender, you know, 2021 thoughts. To cut a long story short, we sent out a newspaper reporter to where we believed Virginia was. He says, "Malcolm, I knocked on the door." I says, "Are you Virginia?" Or she's married now. "Was you originally Virginia Campbell?" "No." She was stuttering, and he says, "Malcolm, I'm sure it was her," but she denied being her. So we still don't know if... Well, we know she's in Kempston, but we don't know where. That's the sad thing, you know.
Yeah, that's a shame. That's not that far from me, actually. I think that's actually where the Kinsellas live as well, isn't it, Kempston?
I was going to say something. It's like, oh,
that's Philip and Ronald Kinsella. I'm sure they live in Kempston.
Yeah, they do. Kinsella twins will.
Yeah, we may well have to do a little bit of digging if we can.
I think we need to send them on an adventure.
Yeah,
absolutely, Juliet. Yes, for sure.
If I was down that way, trust me, I'd be going, "Hello." I'd be helping you out.
But yeah, very amazing story.
Yeah, I mean, it's a marvellous case, and there are no two ways about it. Not only did you have 2 doctors, you had a minister. And you also had, sorry, I forgot to mention, you had about 6 ministers that came from Edinburgh poo-pooing the idea and fled away, seen it themselves. So you've got all these fantastic, you know, people that seen that, men of integrity, you know, men of the cloth, doctors, etc. Now, that's not to say people can lie. Of course, you have police officers lying, etc. But back in the day, you know, it was more it was more that you had to be there and tell the truth. You couldn't be seen to be partaking in any tomfoolery, so to speak.
I mean, with all those kids, you know, the witnesses of the children and everything, I mean, that really stands up a lot, doesn't it? You know.
It does, and, you know, you've got many witnesses, etc., but people say, well, what do I think it was? I certainly don't think it was due to sexual energy. People say that it's like sexual energy from kids going through puberty. Kids at a certain age, you know, it externalizes this energy, sexual energy externalizes to push things about. Can I ask you two lovely people this question? If that was the case, David and Juliet, surely you would have poltergeists in nearly every house in England and Scotland and Wales.
Yeah.
Why? Because the teenagers and all sexual energy that. So I don't think it's that.
Absolutely.
Not
I mean, I've never experienced anything like that myself in my life. You know.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I honestly think it was some deceased person who was somehow attached to Virginia. It sounds Hollywood, but I'm afraid that's what I think. And sadly, it's followed her. Yeah. I mean, generally speaking, poltergeists are short-lived. They don't last for very long, whereas hauntings can last for years, you know, like a videotape.
Yeah.
But there was some sadness associated with that, and let's not forget, it followed her not just to England, but it followed her to the wee town, a house in Dollar. So no matter where she went, even school, it was there, you know.
Yeah. Did you do any investigations into the actual premises, you know, the home of Virginia's?
No, I mean, I hope to do that. I mean, it's many years have passed now. As I say, I was only 3 when it happened originally. What I should mention, and the fact is, it's a Polish family that now live in the place, live in that house. And I sent a letter to them, walked through the door, saying, you know, told them the story. If they want to speak to me, has anything happened? But what I did manage to find out was that not only did that happen to one family in the street, it happened to another 3 families in the street at different addresses on the same side of the street. And all that's in my book. Now, this was nothing to do with the actual Park Crescent one, where this young girl was. It was in the same street, but different families at different times of the decade, you know. And again, we mentioned all that. And it got so bad in one house, in fact, that the father was reported to have said to the local newspaper, he says, I've had enough. Even if we have to sleep in the car with my wife and kids, I will not set foot in that house again. And that was only about 2 or 3 houses away from the original Sauchie Poltergeist house. So what a street that is, you know.
Can I ask you something? I'm just sort of thinking out, please God, I want that book, I want it signed now. I'm like, can I just throw money over the internet? You know me, I love a good spot of research. I love a good bit of history, and you've got Poltergeist, you've got everything. We need to televise, we need to make this into something. Television, film.
Well, we did actually, I worked with the BBC One show last February, on that case and another case, and we filmed it. It was all in the can. We filmed a number of people and stuff, but that's still to be broadcast. And I've been speaking to the guys. I've been speaking to the guys who made the movie, One Tribe TV Productions, I think they're called, and for the One Show, independent filmmakers. And they said, Malcolm, we don't know what's going on. And he sent me one of the early rushes of it without the titles. And it's brilliant. It looks great, you know. But as yet, the One Show hasn't played it, which is a shame.
Can I ask something? This is more with
you know what would be grateful? Is the fact that this would make a beautiful, wonderful docudrama, a period true drama.
Yeah, it would.
Just like the Enfield Poltergeist was made into a docudrama a few years ago.
That's right, yeah, it was good.
That would be fabulous. I've had a thought. I'm sort of thinking, obviously, because I've not read the book yet. If I've sort of going over things you've talked about, do forgive me. I'm just thinking history-wise. Do we know the history of the land? Has it been built on something, not specifically a grave?
Yes, I mean, obviously,
horrid happened before.
I was thinking myself, well, could it be the land? Could it site? Was it a ceremonial site from Pictish times or whatever? Not that that would necessarily enhance something. So I did a bit of research, and you know what? Nothing. It was just farmers' fields farmers' fields. There were nothing in that area at that time would possibly contribute to an event of that nature.
What about murder?
A murder, as far as I'm led to believe, and we did ask that question, a number of residents. No one was killed in, that they know, in that street or any surrounding streets. But you're right, it's good to question that. You've got to find
to me,
out,
it's like where I am. We discussed, listeners, we were discussing Blackpool and are reminiscing, because I live in Blackpool, and obviously Malcolm has visited quite a few times, but there's elements where it's very flat, but there's an awful lot of history. It's not just Blackpool and the towers, there's an awful lot of farms, and it's just got so much history. So to me, I always go, what was there before?
Yeah, I mean, there's always something before the farms as well, isn't it? It could actually go back to ancient times. You never know if there was like old villages or something like that in these places, where there could be still elements of, the people that used to live there.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, maybe some people held reverence on that site, hundreds, thousands of years ago for some maybe an energy's been left there. It's like if you sometimes, and I don't know about anybody else, but sometimes when I go into a church, I remember when I first moved to Ealing in London, I was in a church with the person I went down to see, and as soon as I walked in there, it was like a battery. I just felt so emotional. I actually was crying, and I don't know why. I just started to cry, and maybe certain sites have that value where they leave a residue of energy over the years.
Yeah, it's a possibility, isn't it? So
I agree with that.
Obviously that's probably your most favourite case, is it, Malcolm, out of all the Scottish cases?
It probably is, as far as paranormal goes, for sure. And it was a joy to relive it and talk to people who were there at the time. Sadly, a number of classmates have passed on, and some have moved abroad, etc. But just I really, really wish I was old enough at that time to have physically investigated it properly, because the mainstay of our society and any research society is to get into a haunted property with your equipment and find out for sure if there's any truth to the claims made by the occupiers of the house. We have to be very careful that nobody's there to pull the wool over your eyes and make up a story. Thankfully, touch wood, it hasn't happened to SPI as yet, but you have to be on your guard that people are just out to look at some notoriety. But there's no denying that the Sauchie case was terrific, for sure, yeah.
Because I know the paranormal does kind of take the edge off of the UFOs for you. I mean, I know you love both aspects, but the paranormal side of it is really your love, isn't it?
It is, David. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, UFOs, it's a big part of my life, Loch Ness, etc. But the paranormal, the life after death, the ghosts, the poltergeist, the spookiness, for want of a better word, is very, very challenging, and I started off way back to disprove all these things that I've said in my lectures, and how wrong was I, I mean, I've had my hair pulled, I've been kicked by nothing. So you come off the fence, and any skeptics listening to the show might think it's still rubbish, but all I can say to anybody listening who are not sure or maybe skeptical is, if you put yourself in that environment, and you will find out yourself, but as a society, we have to check that, as I say, that nobody's pulling the wool over our eyes. I am still very, very sceptical. No matter where I go, a haunted house, a UFO case, I am still wanting to shoot it down in flames until...
Absolutely. I mean, if you hear of something, you can't just jump in and say, oh, that's something paranormal. You've got to look at a normal thing that it can be. You've got to weigh that out first.
Absolutely, David. I mean, I've fell out with people over the years. We went to see somebody when I lived in London. He had UFO footage, and he was all excited. He couldn't wait. It was VHS. He couldn't wait to get that tape in the machine and show us, And away it started to play, and I knew within about 20 seconds or so, it was laser lights illuminating low-lying clouds, it was going round in circles. And I said that to the fella, and he was angry. He said, I thought you believed in this thing. Why are you saying this? You should be believing this. And I said, sorry, I can only tell you what I think, you know. And, I mean, I could say to your listeners that I could have been wrong on that, but I wasn't. It was definitely. And we found out there was a new discotheque that opened up about 2 miles away on that night doing the laser lights, you know. Yeah.
I mean, especially today, we know, for instance, that you go on YouTube, there's probably 99% of them are probably fakes. Well, I don't know, maybe not 99%, but certainly a very high percentage.
No.
I would like to put a figure on it, but
I think you're out with the 99, actually.
But the only problem is, how do you tell those real, genuine ones from the fake ones sometimes? That's the problem, you know.
Well, I mean, I'll give you for instance, I was speaking, and I'm so sorry, I can't remember if it was Probe or Lapis, they're going to kill me now, in Blackpool. And Mike Hallowell and a couple other guys, after my lecture, we went out to near Blackpool Airport, on the sands at Blackpool Beach, and I think Blackpool Airport was behind us, and it was a lovely starry night.
Yeah,
do you know where that is, Juliet? Yeah?
Yes, I know exactly where you're talking about. Okay. You remember, I was there.
You were there? Yes, you were, weren't you?
Yes.
You remember this?
I'm nodding with you. I know you can't see me. Correct
me if I'm wrong. We were watching the sky, looking at that, and then suddenly this ball of light, white ball of light, came over the sea above our heads, and nobody spoke, because we all knew, wait a minute, where's the navigation lights? Right, they'll come on any minute. It's got to be an aircraft, isn't it? And nobody spoke. We're looking at this. Do you remember it, Juliet?
It was obviously being local, and I live probably 5 minutes, no, to be honest, 3-4 minutes drive to the airport. There's a way that the aircrafts come in, so you know which way. If you don't, you just go boom. So even I knew it was like, that ain't an aircraft. It's coming in the wrong direction for a start off. So, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I mean, we were looking for a turn so you could maybe see the navigation lights, and there were no low-lying cloud. It was quite low, and so it wasn't going in and out of cloud. It would stop the flashing lights, and it flew over our heads and flew across Blackpool Airport. And we just looked at each other and I went, did we really see that? I mean, what the hell was that? And I'm still convinced that whatever it was, it certainly wasn't an aircraft or a hang glider or anything motorised. I could be wrong, and maybe I'm wrong, but it was quite funny that we were there and we couldn't answer it, you know.
So there you go, Julia. You have seen a UFO. You said you hadn't seen one.
To me, I think I want something more this is going to sound really horrible. I want something more spectacular. I want something that's not just a light in the distance.
You want Close Encounters of the Third Kind, don't you?
You know what I mean. But again, in that respect, I'm sort of more like Malcolm. I'm more with the paranormal, ghosty sort of side. I love the research of it, but it does overlap, of course, into ufology.
Yes, as we've mentioned before. I was going to ask Malcolm about that. Do you ever see any connections with UFOs and the paranormal? Although I suppose you could say UFOs are paranormal or not, I don't know. But do you ever see connections with that?
Only once, David. I used to say no, but there was a case that drew my attention, and a case that SBI investigated way back in the early 90s in Devon. And initially it all started with this lady. She had a haunted house and she was seeing this visions of this young child, like like the little house in the prairie, that kind of pinafore dress and the curls in her hair, very ye old style, and she would appear in her bedroom, and then she started to say something to me, and then she withdrew, and I says, no, you got to tell me anything at all. Please tell me, because it's all important. And she says, well, don't laugh, but as I was staring and looking, mesmerised at this little ghost girl who suddenly appeared at the foot of my bed, standing in the corner of the room was a small grey being. And she did say that her house was subjected to UFO sightings over a period of about 2 weeks and nothing more after that. And so, I mean, it's bizarre, and you're dealing effectively with people's testimony. Are they telling the truth? Are they want to kind of ham it up a bit? But that's the only case that that has been intertwined with the paranormal is
seeped into the UFO side of things. Very, very strange one, that. Very strange. But I'll tell you what, she was very sincere, and, you know, she spoke with honesty and conviction, and who am I to say she was wrong?
Absolutely. I mean, I did wonder if there was some sort of case like that. And the fact that she saw a grey, I mean, would she have known about greys and stuff like that? You know.
Not essentially. I mean, not essentially. She just described it in the typical grey fashion. You know, it's small, 3.5 to 4 feet tall, being with a pear-shaped head, black inky almond-shaped eyes, grey translucent skin. And what I can't remember, I've got the audio tape somewhere of the recording, is how that actually finished. You know, it did both disappear at the same time. I'll need to check back my records. But, you know, it's quite interesting because it's not only the appearance of those two figures, but it's the disappearance of that. Was she having a lucid dream? Was she having this strange hypnopompic dream? And they were not there, not in reality. But, you know, it's like the whole range of the paranormal. It's so mysterious and elusive sometimes.
Well, do you know if they were aware of each other, the girl in the area? Or... As
far as I know, as far as I can recollect, they were not. But, you know, who knows? Maybe they were drawing that comparison.
Interesting, eh, Juliet?
Very. It's just, it's unusual that you sort of get the overlapping, you know, as Malcolm's sort of explaining here, because it's usually when you sort of read about things or you watch things, you know, on social media, it's one or the other. So for me, something like this, it's like, ooh, more.
Yeah. And the thing is, maybe there are lots of these stories out there, you know, and we just need to hear from these people. So if anybody's listening to this show and if they're aware of these stories, by all means get in touch with the show and let us know.
Yeah. So I think when you bring the interdimensional aspect into it, I think anything can kind of happen. If you've got interdimensional beings rather than extraterrestrial beings, there must be, you know, quite a mixture, I would have thought, you know, so... Maybe it wasn't an alien at all. Maybe it was an interdimensional being. You know, that's kind of the way I think, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly my way of thinking these days has shifted more towards the interdimensional theory along the lines of Jacques Vallée and his colleagues. You know, I do think we're dealing with a superstring universe, quarks, neutrinos. There's something in this dimensional vibrationally level that psychics can pick up, and maybe these UFOs are coming into this waveband, this wavelength. We're a lot to learn as human beings. We know so little, but for me, and I dare say a lot of my colleagues, dimensions is where it's all happening.
Yeah, I think a lot of the researchers seem to be saying that now. You know, that's what I hear a lot on this show anyway, that there's a lot more interdimensional stuff going on. How do you feel about that, Juliet? Do you think so? Yeah, I mean, you've been on a couple of shows with me, and it does seem a lot like that, doesn't it?
I'm very much nodding and agree. I know you can't see me, but yes, very much so. Because you could sort of lend yourself, and it's something that Malcolm and I was written about, you know, with the folklore, the history and the mystery. It's, you could sort of tie that back to more heritage and archaeology. I've always sort of wondered, it's like if you see somebody walking through a wall and people, somebody did a really good, simple explanation. They just did a picture and they said, here is a picture of where the ghost is seen to have been walking, etc., etc. And here is a picture of the original layout of the building. And there was a door. And it was like, sometimes it's a really simple explanation. Other times it's like, no, I've no idea. And you've got so many theories out there, you know, and from what I've sort of listened to and obviously read some of Malcolm's stuff, it's like you say, it just all interconnects.
Yeah. I mean, do you think the stone tape theory, Malcolm, do you think a lot of that is connected to a lot of these things that are going on?
Absolutely. The stone tape theory plays a big part in the paranormal, and we shouldn't shy away from that because it holds a number of answers. And for any listeners who's not aware of that, what we're effectively saying here is that certain buildings, more so your old ancient buildings, contain memories within the very fabric of the stonework, you know, the silicon stone, what it's made up of, etc. I mean, there was a famous case in a pub in Kenfig in Wales where it was, you know, once the proprietor had locked the premises up for the night,
He was being told from passers-by that there were merriment, there were clinking of glasses, they were laughing, they were joking, there was the sound of an organ. He went, whoa.
And you weren't there, was you?
No, I was there. No. And so obviously he found that very strange. So to cut a long story short, he got these two whiz kids in, and they put some kind of electrodes into the very walls, into an audio tape recording device, and they pressed play and record, and they vacated the premises. They locked it all up, and then the following morning when they went back, they played the audio tapes, and you could clearly hear the clinking of glasses, the merriment, the talking, and the sound of an old kind of organ. Now, there were an organ in that pub many, many years ago, but not since then. So effectively, it's captured something. I can put it like this, Juliet and David. If you went into someone's house and unbeknown to you, they had a big row, they've been arguing, and you knock your front door, oh, hello Juliet, hello David, and you come, but you could sense, you could cut it with a knife. So in a sense, it's like when a murder's happened or something, maybe the impregnation of those emotions is like a videotape, like the old VHS videotape. It's impregnated into the very, very fabric of the building. And not just the building. Ornaments, chairs. I mean, we have people who have seen, I'll give you a quick story. Strange one, this. An old friend of mine who's sadly no longer with us, when he was a small boy, he had a strange experience. And what it was that his mother had bought an old mirror from a curio shop. And as young Frank walked towards this mirror, he could see this pink rabbit in the top left-hand corner. And as he got closer and closer, it got fuzzier and fuzzier. And then he walked back away, and it was there, it was solidified again. Then it disappeared. So he said to his mother, I saw a rabbit in this mirror. And she saw it as well, and the story goes, to cut a long story short, the mirror from that curio shop was facing stuffed toys, rabbits, clowns, bunnies. So how on earth could a rabbit, this impregnation of this physicality, be impregnated into glass? Another weird paranormal story which we all love,
That is weird. Wow.
That is weird, yeah. I'm never going to look at the toys again. Now, I actually do have a piece of artwork in the bedroom. This is going to sound really weird, but I'm kind of nodding again. And nothing untoward, and it's a big blue rabbit. You're probably thinking Cary Grant, Harvey the Rabbit here, but anyway.
Oh, wasn't at all, but yeah, carry on.
I was reading something. I was reading about some ghosties and stuff. And I thought, yeah. And I'm looking at this rabbit, and it's looking at me, and I'm thinking, it doesn't usually look at me because it's static. It's not like lifelike. Yeah. I will actually send you both pictures so you know what the hell I'm talking about. But it was like, I'm just going to turn this round. And how stupid is that?
Gave you the heebie-jeebies, did it?
I've never done that before, but it's like, it's like when they came to the house and they said, you've not got a full-length mirror. And I said, I don't want one. Why? And I said, I'm superstitious. What do you mean? And I said, if you say, the Lord's Prayer 3 times, and there's like a sight, whether it's just me or whether, you gents, there's certain things that I like the number 13, but there's certain things that I think, whereas, do I cover them? Do I not cover them? Is it something I picked up off my parents? Is it something that I picked up off my friends and colleagues? It's like,
yeah, could be something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we could also put that into the equation of, you mentioned a rabbit there, Juliet. I mean, you've got haunted dolls, you've got that famous doll, Annabelle, etc. We could ask the question, why is certain objects, inanimate objects, have this sense of foreboding to people? We have to look at that as well, yeah.
I'll tell you what, we were talking about stones just now, Malcolm. Have you still got that stone that mysteriously appeared in Nottingham? Do you remember?
I have indeed, David. And for those listeners who's probably wondering what the hell we're talking about.
I was going to go into the story a little bit, but I just wondered if you still had it. But
I mean, basically, you and I, as you recall, we were at the Paraforce event a few years ago in Nottingham, which was held at the Nottingham Halls of Justice.
Was that about 4 years ago? Something like that?
Oh, probably, yeah. It was a fantastic event. And beneath the bowels of the Halls of Justice is these old cells and walkways, etc. And then you go further down into the depths of it, and you've got, it's big like caves, if you remember, David. Some parts of the downstairs under the Courts of Justice they're all flagstones. And for the listeners' benefit, David and I was walking back from one of the cells or somewhere. Because
it's all cells under. You got the ground underground, and you got the cells, haven't you? And it's all actually really hard paving stones all the way up these stairs.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. And if you recall, as we were walking back in semi-darkness, it was like a sound of a cracking of a whip, like a bullwhip.
It was like a crack, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh. And I spun round and I had my torch and I was looking, where the hell did that come from? And there, just moving slightly, was this stone, polished stone, and I picked it up and it was really warm, wasn't it, David? It was really warm.
Yeah.
I passed it.
I wasn't fully aware if it was that caused it, but because it was warm, I think you've just got to assume it was that.
Yeah, I mean, that's correct. We have to assume it's that. I mean, they call it an apport. And if you check the records, the Nottingham Halls of Justice is well known for the apports. These falls of stones, things that fall from mid-air with a clatter and a resounding crack sometimes. And when you generally pick them up, they're very hot or they're quite warm. Now, for sure, yeah, we don't know if somebody threw that from a distance. And
well, there was nobody behind us. If you remember, there were some fellows down the other end, and they said, "Did you hear that crack?" And we said, "Yes." And they were wondering what it was as well,
Yeah, and I've still got that stone, and I always love to keep mementos like that, David.
I think the thing was at the time we said that had it been a stone that was thrown, it wouldn't have just gone crack once. You'd have heard a bouncing noise, wouldn't you? But
well, that's true.
This seemed to just make a crack noise, and it seemed to. You didn't hear a bouncing noise. I didn't anyway. All I heard was a crack, and we sort of looked behind us back down the stairs, and it was actually quite dark.
And like I say, that place is well known for the stones to fall from mid-air and onto the floor, so maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's one of them.
I mean, I must admit, it was quite a fascinating occurrence. I must say, it's the first time I've experienced anything like that. I don't see what else it could have been. Something went crack, didn't it? So, and there was nothing behind us, so I don't know what it was. But that was weird. Have you ever anything like that, Juliet?
In my parents' house.
Have you?
Yes. Do you remember the old door handles? And they were round, and you could get they're either brass or you could get wooden ones.
Yeah.
Remember those?
Door knobs, they used to call them.
Donuts.
If you pardon the expression.
We're not yes, they're trying to be PC there. When my parents first got the house in the 70s, early 70s, there was lots of work that needed doing. And, you end up making friends with the neighbours and so on and so forth. And they made friends with a lady called Eve Cooper. And she married to a gentleman that both passed away now called Tom. And Eve used to be a district nurse. And she says, I used to look after the lady there. And it was like, oh, okay. She said, she was very nice. Her husband worked in a newsagent. She sort of attended. Didn't think anything of it. But as a young child, things would bump and knock and things would move. You can see them move it. When you sort of think, have I slept enough? Because as a kid, it's all you're imagining things. Yeah. But it was like, no, we think it was the lady who used to live there. But she didn't die there. This is what we were trying to sort of, we discussed this back and forth, my mother and I, Kath. And it's like, was she just happy there? Because she didn't die there, because we've researched it. And it's like, she says, do you remember things that would happen? I said, yeah. My dad was a organist, so he used to go out to hotels and so on and so forth. And there's one instance where he had things that he could incorporate into his acts, like a swanny whistle. The one where he goes, ooh.
Yeah.
And he was out doing something, and my mother, we could hear the whistling, and it was just both of us in the house. I haven't got any brothers or sisters, and it was like, do you hear that? Yeah. Okay. You know, or things would just drop, or you could see, you know, when you look sometimes out the corner of your eye and you can see something. If you turn your head quickly enough, sometimes you do see something. We would. Or would see things at the bottom of the stairs, and it's like, is it her? Is it something else? But again, because I love my heritage and history, I researched sort of the area, and I thought, you know, is it on a burial graveyard? You know, no, it was a field.
Yeah.
There was no ditches, there was nothing, you know. The Fylde coast is really flat as well, you know. It would have been more impressive if it was like, you know, Roman or no. So there's elements where, again, I can't explain things, so it's quite interesting for me, because I always love hearing about other people's, you know, especially Malcolm, you know, because it's like, for me, it's like a learning curve as well, because it's like, oh, that's different, or something similar happens. So, yeah.
Actually, I was going to say, Malcolm, that a Paul story from Nottingham is in your Paranormal Case Files of Great Britain, Volume 3, isn't it? It's on page 96. It starts from. So if anyone has got that book or wants to get it, which we'll talk a little bit later about the books, but yeah, it's in that book anyway. That little story. What are all your ghost stories, Malcolm? What are your most favourite ones, do you think? Is it actually the Sauchie one? Sauchie, is it? Yes. I can never pronounce it right. I always have trouble, don't I, Julia?
A lot of people find it difficult to say that, Sauchie, you know, but yeah, I mean, it is certainly one of my biggest cases, with which we spoke about earlier. But there is quite a few other ones as well, which I've spoken about on shows and radio. But for those who are not aware of some of these stories, I'll just give you a quick, for instance. I got told a story by a lady when I lived in Hastings, a few years ago, and she said that one of the major doctors, one of the major surgeons, was off his work due to stress. And I says, well, you know, it's a tough job, of course, you know, he's got to be off. Oh no, you don't understand, Malcolm. Something happened that made him go off work. Proceed to tell me. So what it was that he was walking down the corridor in one of the hospitals in Hastings in East Sussex in England, and as he walked down one of the corridors, he approached an elderly gentleman who was looking out of the window, and he was standing next to swing doors, and the gentleman looked a bit confused, and the surgeon says, you okay, sir? Everything all right there? I think so. And at that point, the doctor's pager went off, and he says, excuse me a moment, sir, hold on. And he went to look at his pager, and he was requested in the resus room, and as he turned round, the gentleman had gone. He had presumed he had walked through the swing doors. So I think you know what's coming. So when the doctor went to the resus room, who did he see on the resus bed with the circular paddles on his chest, being shocked into life? And he couldn't believe it. You know, he went, my God, I was just speaking to him. So the story gets even stranger, because he says, wait a minute, let's have a look at the CCTV footage. It pans along that corridor. So the doctor, along with his staff, rewound the security cameras, and they saw him. They saw the doctor walking down the corridor, speaking to nothing at all. Nobody was there.
That is weird.
But probably apart from the Sauchie case, and again I've said this in many conferences, that the main case was, of course, the Chingford seance, which you may be aware of, David and Juliet, but for any listeners or not, very, very briefly, when I gave lectures in London, a lady says, Malcolm, would you like to come to my house and see the dead people for yourself?
Yeah.
And his eyes lit up, yeah.
It fell on my face. So we went to her house, and she says, look, what's happening, Malcolm, is we have a visiting psychic. He's a trance medium as well, but he goes into trance state, and things happen, weird things happen. So she took us up into the bedroom. I checked the walls for any hidden cavities. I thumped my feet on the floorboards to see if there were any hidden cavities there. You try and do as best as you can as a researcher to say, well, is somebody trying to film me? Are the hidden tape recorders secreted in the walls? What's going? You've got to check everything. And at the corner of this room was a black curtain from one corner to the other. Behind that was a plastic chair. The gentleman eventually came up, and I padded him down to make sure he wasn't secreting any hidden telescopic devices or anything at all. As you do.
And rephrase that, but anyway.
Yeah, well...
The
reason I said that, Juliet, will become clear in a moment. And so we tied him down with heavy Velcro straps onto the chair, and there was a small chest of drawers which is next to the black curtain, and there was a small red ambient light, and there was 4 people looking at this curtain. The lady of the house extinguished the lights. We could still see myself included, I could see the 3 other people facing this curtain with a guy behind it. And then we started singing old songs to create that ambience, allegedly for spirit to manifest, which is Roll Out the Barrel and all these favourite pub songs of years gone by. And there were all these little silver bells tacked onto the walls, and they started vibrating and tinkling, and then there were voices, male, female, young, old, coming from all over the room. And I'm thinking, well, who's throwing their voice? I'm still sceptical, even though I believe these things. And nobody, as far as you could see, was throwing their voice, or I couldn't hear that. These voices were coming from under your chin, your ear, the top of your head, under your legs, under the seat. And then suddenly, this black cloth pushed itself into the, well, not the middle of the room, it wasn't a bigger cloth, but it pushed itself out about 4 feet from the guy, and a face moulded into this cloth. Wow. And that's why I was saying about the telescopic rods, is anybody pushing the cloth out? And it was horrible, and then suddenly that went away, and then there was this small chest of drawers rose up, right up to the ceiling, came across the room and slowly went onto my toes. It actually fell on my toes. And I said, this voice came out, spirit voice came out, was Mr. Robinson impressed by this? And I said, well, look, yeah, seriously. I says, look, I'd be even more surprised if you took it back. And which I would be. And the voice replied, we shall see what we can do. So what happened was, I put my fingers under the lip of this small 3-doored chest of drawers, and I said to myself, this ain't going anywhere. And I says to the room, okay, if there's anybody there, take it away back. Come on then, take it back. And after about a minute and a half, nothing happened. And slowly I could not hold this back. It just came away from my fingers and floated back up into the air and floated and went right back to the other side of the room. And at that point, a tremendous burst of cold wind pervaded the room. This sounds like a Hollywood film, doesn't it? But it bloody well happened.
No, I felt that pressure before when I've done table tipping. Everyone was taking their hands off the table. When it came to my turn, I was actually putting my hands under the table to see what was there, and I was actually pushing down on the table. And it was like a springy motion. You could actually feel the power underneath it.
Oh yeah. But that's the most remarkable thing so far that I've ever seen, and I've had I've been in a lot of bizarre environments. I've spent many nights in haunted houses and seen a lot of strange stuff, but that night, what I saw will live with me forever. It was truly incredible. The downside of that, folks, is the fact that she didn't allow any video cameras or any audio equipment. And even if we had have captured something momentous on that occasion, the skeptics of the world would have said we just conjured it up on computer or something, you know.
Especially if you filmed it as well. Yeah, you're right. I mean, blimey. I'll tell you what, where you're up in Scotland there, you've got quite a few nice castles and things, haven't you? I imagine you're going to do a tour of castles, are you? Ghost hunting?
Well, when I lived in Hastings there in East Sussex, I loved my castles. I was at Scotney Castle, Hertsman Zoo, Pevensey, and so many other castles over there. And I dare say I will be doing the same here in Scotland. Now I'm back in my homeland after 23 years in England. Yeah. But my aim is to really make sure SPI is a force to be reckoned with here in Scotland. lots of lectures, lots of investigations, a lot of site visits, etc. And as you said, David, a wee visit or two to some famous castles.
Yeah. Well, not only castles, you've got plenty of old churches and things as well, haven't you?
Oh.
Yeah, there must be an awful lot of history with ghosts and, black monks and nuns and all sorts of stuff, I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anywhere else in Great Britain. I believe it's at York. It's supposed to be the most heavily haunted town in Great Britain. I mean, there's so many places where you would expect to see a ghost, and certainly that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get visual proof on audio tape, and also, well, not on audio tape, but on videotape, and soundproof on audio tape, and just see what happens. We've got to try and do this. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I suppose we should talk a little bit about your paranormal books so that people know all about them. You've got a few UFO books as well, but we were really talking about paranormals tonight, aren't we? You've got Paranormal Case Files of Great Britain, Volume 1, Volume 2 and Volume 3, which are available on Amazon. Plus the Sauchie Poltergeist, which is your latest book, Malcolm, which we're mainly talking about today. And also you've got your UFO Case Files of Scotland, which are available, and the book before this latest one, because you're quite prolific lately, I must say, with your books.
Yeah. I mean, I'm working on another book as well, but the Paranormal Case Files books were purely done to allow all these stories that I've amassed over the years to get them out in book form, because I've said before, there's no use in having all these wonderful stories that people share from the bottom of their hearts at conferences. They come up and tell you things. And what do you do with them? Just bury them in the ground? No, you've got to put them out in book form, because it's all a big jigsaw. People's experiences are wondrous things. Yeah. And not all of them are the real deal. Some of them are, it's simulacrum, it's pareidolia. They see things that look like an alien or a ghost, and it's not. So we still have to be careful. But these books were a catalyst for me to allow me to get these stories out, and that I enjoy doing it. I really do.
Well, you do say that in most of in all the books anyway. Say you've treated them like an investigator would do, saying you're not sure if this was true and all that sort of stuff. Which is the way you should do it. But also you've got your Deckmont Woods UFO incident, which was the book before. So we're not really talking about UFOs today, but I thought I'd better mention it. But on the Paranormal Dimensions page, I'll put a link to all these books for you, again, and for anyone that's interested in getting hold of them. Another one I forgot to mention was the Monsters of Loch Ness book, which was a couple of books back.
Yeah, that's my favourite of all the books I've written.
That is your actual favourite, is it? Okay.
Yeah, Nessie's very dear to my heart, and I just loved doing the research, and for that book, I love that book. Yeah, and so much has happened since the book. So many more sightings, but there'll always be things.
There has been more sightings of there. I haven't heard of any myself, but.
Yeah, there've been a few. I mean, nothing fantastic, and there've been some videos as well of things, seen in the water, but that could be anything. We have to be very, very careful. But it's like UFOs, it's like ghosts. There will always, always, always be sightings of ghosts, UFOs, Nessie, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Chupacabra, etc. Yeah. It's a wonderful, mysterious universe we live in.
Yeah, so, as far as the Loch Ness Monster is concerned, so your actual feelings, do you really feel that there's something in that story?
I do. It's certainly not a plesiosaur, because the witnesses I've spoke to say that the long neck is extended up from the water with a small sheep-like head. The plesiosaur, as we know, could not extend its head and neck vertically like that. It was physically impossible. People have suggested that it's maybe a large eel. There is quite a number of eels in Loch Ness. Some people have suggested it's a large sturgeon fish, which can grow up to 14 feet in length. But one thing we should never ever forget, folks, is that the coelacanth, that was an ancient prehistoric fish, was finally discovered off the coast of Madagascar in 1958, I think it was. And that's a prehistoric fish, you know.
Yeah.
We're finding species of insects, of frogs in this planet nearly every day, you know, new species that's never been discovered before. So who's to say that maybe there's something unusual lurks in Loch Ness? Obviously there's more than one to sustain a colony of creatures. If I was pushed to say, I probably would say that it's probably a large eel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a possibility, isn't it? I know we should mention again that you're one of the few people that have been down into Loch Ness in the little yellow submarine, was it?
Yeah, I wish it was. No, it was a red and white submarine.
Oh, a red and white one.
And that was back in 1994, and that was a wonderful experience. It really was great, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. But,
just going on from talking about Loch Ness, I was just sort of going left field a little bit, the southeast side, Boleskine, Alistair Crowley's house. There's a chap who's bought it, and he's doing it up. Would you be visiting there in the future, perhaps, when it's safer to do so? Because I'd be definitely going, ooh. It's just such an interesting backstory as well with the owners and what he's trying to do now. He's come up with so much resistance. I just thought it might be worth you paying a visit, perhaps.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, probably. Well, as we know, it was destroyed very badly by fire several years ago. And there is some footage of the devastation on YouTube. If anyone puts in Boleskine house fire, you'll see that, and you've got people walking through the ruins and that. So this guy obviously has bought the premises now to do it up. I don't know if it's Holiday Flats. I think it might be Holiday Flats he's doing it for. Will it have the same ambience as when Alistair Crowley had it? Who knows? It's certainly a visit that Malky Robinson will be paying to. That's for sure.
I don't know if anyone else heard that. Did you hear any voices come out over this? Or was that? I heard voices as you were talking then. I don't know if it was a radio signal came in or something, but that was weird.
It's EVP, David.
It could be EVP, yeah. Anyway, Malcolm, I guess we can leave it there unless you want to tell us any more stories.
I mean, I've always got loads of stories.
Oh, I know.
Anybody knows.
Just sit there all evening with a pint and just listen.
People, they go clean shaven to my talks and then they come out with a big beard like Rasputin, you know. I go on and on.
Now you're always good to listen to, Malcolm. You know.
You're good.
I'll give you a quick final one, and this concerned a gentleman who's sadly no longer with us, a chap called Ray Todd, and he was a transfiguration medium. Now this guy said to myself and a fellow Scottish researcher by the name of Ron Halliday, who's actually recently written a book about this fella. So he said that, you know, his face changes and da-da-da-da, and I'd never ever seen this before, and I went, wow, what a great opportunity this is for me to see this so-called transfiguration, you know. So, cut a long story short, the chap lived in Edinburgh, and I went to see him several times, but I'm going to tell you what happened on a few of those occasions. So I he sat in a chair and I sat in a chair across from him, and he says, and it was in the background, there was soft ambient music was playing, and he says, Malcolm, just look at my face, keep your eyes on my face, I'm not asking you to do anything else, just be quiet, Malcolm, look at my face. And I was still not sure, you know, if things were going to transpire, and I thought I was actually a bit silly, you know. But after a few moments, I could clearly see a shift in his face. And then suddenly, I spoke about Rasputin, but seriously, folks, it was a massive big beard. It came down from his chin. And the chap had a bald head. And then suddenly, he sprouted all this hair, and his eyes changed. And I let out the biggest girly scream you will ever hear in your life. I jumped up. I was swearing like a trooper. And he just softly smiled and he says, oh, so you can see it then. See it. Now, I actually filmed this. I took a video camera and I filmed it, and I was living in Scotland at the time, and I showed it at one of our SBI meetings in Stirling, and half the audience says, what? I can't see anything. And the other half would go, oh.
It's the Gremlins. It's the Gremlins.
It's the Gremlins. It's the Scottish Gremlins, Juliet. Oh, I don't know.
I know. I'm nodding.
Anyway,
we've got Lancashire.
I apologise to
Boggart.
I apologise to the listeners if that dropped out a little bit there. We'll have to see how it comes out, but we might have lost a little bit of that. But I think we got the gist of the story anyway. But,
yeah, the gist it is, just to finish off on that, was that I saw this person's face change. I honestly did. And it was frightening, it was exciting, all in the one sentence.
Yeah, I don't disbelieve you, Malcolm, because I've witnessed it as well. You know Frank Willis, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, he did it at my place. When we did the Colonel Holt conference, he came back with Sasha and my wife Jill. We were in the living room, and he did a demonstration of transfiguration mediumship. And it blew me away. We all saw the same thing, you know, because he's got quite a beat up face, doesn't he, Frank? He won't mind me. He won't mind me saying it. It's but I mean, his nose became aquiline. He got like a Chinese feature. In fact, I think there was about 3 different shapes came over his face. It really blew us all away. Like you, I thought we wouldn't see anything as well.
No, I've seen that. He did something similar at a conference at St Anne's Probe. And I was taking pictures and I thought, what's going on with his face? And I was videoing and I was taking pictures. And I went up afterwards and I went, you had golden eye. Sounded like some dodgy line from James Bond. And he went, you saw it then, didn't you? And I went, yeah, I didn't know he did it. So for me, that was like, I thought, and I sort of turned to the chap I was stood next, and it was like, yeah, I can see it as well. So I said, I'm not hallucinating. He went, no, that's Frank.
Yeah. But I mean,
it was just...
It was an amazing experience to see. I mean, like you, Malcolm, when he sat there, he was sitting there for about 15 minutes, just sort of sitting quietly. And I was just thinking, we're not going to see anything, and all of a sudden, I'm looking at the others, and we're all looking at each other thinking, can you see what I see? And sort of to each other. I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing, That's, I hope to see it again sometime. I'll get Frank to do it again.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing to see for sure. And if anyone listening gets the opportunity to see something like that, please go along and with an open mind. Yeah. And just pay attention.
Well, it's one of those things that unless you actually see it yourself, it's hard to believe that someone can do that. You probably feel the same way, Malcolm. It's, if someone just tells you that, you think, oh yeah, well, it's just your imagination. But until you actually see it yourself, that's when it's convincing,
Well, the famous skeptic, Dr. Richard Wiseman, when he viewed the footage that I took of Ray Todd's transfiguration, he said that it was just micro expressions, and what that means is that your face is constantly moving. If you smile, your face rises. If you frown, your face goes down. And he says that maybe I was getting fooled into because I was staring so intently at Ray's face, that maybe he was just moving these muscles of his face up slightly. And because when you're staring at anything, your eyes tend to water, and your focus tends to go in and out, just like a camera. Maybe it was just my own mind playing tricks. So, but having said all that, I'm a strong spiritualist. I firmly believe in life after death, and transfiguration is just another aspect of spirit manifestation coming through. So that's real, folks. Yeah, but still be careful.
Now, I mean, the thing was also when you've got several people seeing the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Which is what happened with Jill and Sasha and myself. We were all seeing the same being, the same being, transfiguration on Frank's face. So, how we explain that? I suppose you could explain that that way if you just saw one person, one-to-one. But then again, you saw him grow a beard. How can you explain that?
Yeah, you can't. I don't think you can unless it truly is spirit manifestation. That was astonishing. And I still have that footage. I do aim to put it up on YouTube for the world to see and make their own interpretations of that. But I forget the name of the book, but Ron Halliday's latest book is all about his own personal visits to Ray Todd. And Ron Halliday saw Ray Todd's face changed just like I did, and more. And indeed, here's the twist. Ron Halliday said, and it's in his book, that he actually saw an alien's face as well, morph over Ray Todd's face. So it wasn't just spirit, it was an alien's face as well, all in Ron's book.
Right. Well, I know Ron. I'll have to get in touch with him and get him on the show. It sounds interesting.
Yeah.
It does, doesn't it? But, well, I guess we can kind of leave it there then, Malcolm. Thank you very much. As I say, I'll put all your links to your books on the Paranormal Dimensions page. It's great to, I suppose, but yeah, just before you go, unfortunately, we've just learned that the OLM conference is not going to take place again this year. I was hoping that you might be, we're all going to get together again, but it's just been cancelled, hasn't it? Until March, till March next year. So
yeah. I mean, I was
May.
The late speakers.
Oh, May is it? I thought it was March.
Yeah, it's May. Yeah, it's May.
May.
Well, it may be May, but I thought it was March. But, all right.
I'll be speaking at it next year, David, and point of fact, I'll be speaking about the Sauchie Poltergeist at the OLM conference next year, so do look out for that.
So that'll be your presentation. Excellent. I should look forward to that. Let's just hope it all goes off there. We don't go into another year. I don't think I can take any more.
I know it's hit the entertainment industry and the pub industry so hard. A lot of conferences, as we know, has been postponed and cancelled. I've had to postpone my Sauchie talk here in Sauchie. November last year was cancelled, and this month was cancelled, so it's now rescheduled for November 2021, where I'll be speaking about the Sauchie Poltergeist at Sauchie Hall, and I'm really looking forward to giving that one. I've got a good friend of mine, Darren Ritson, who's co-wrote the South Shields Poltergeist. He's coming up to introduce me, so lovely guy, Darren Ritson, great guy.
Sounds good. Oh, well, good luck with that. Let's hope it all goes well. Okay, right. Thank you very much, Malcolm. It's been great talking to you again. Hope to see you again soon. I'm not sure when, but it's probably going to be next year again now.
Possibly. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you and Juliet. It really is. And you're much admired by me and fellow ufologists, so keep up the good work.
That's very
you
kind
both.
of you to say. I don't think everyone feels that way, but there you go.
I'm just going to say thank you from the photography side and me doing random history. Oh, thank you so much for the book as well and the dedication. And it was a fantastic read. It was brilliant. I was like, wow. My mum's like, what are you reading? And then I sort of went this, and she went, who's Malcolm? I said, I've talked about him. He's Scottish. He's really good.
Everyone knows who Malcolm is. Well,
she doesn't. Honestly, he can tell like a really good story, but some of this is like really. Just give me the book, she said. So she read it in a day.
Wow.
Well,
We Gregsons read quickly, and she went, has he done any more? And I went, yes. And she went, so I get the feeling some more purchases are going to have to be made by me.
That's lovely, Juliet. That's nice.
well, I think Malcolm's books are like that, aren't they? Once you sort of pick them up, you can't put them down.
I know, because it's like if it's a good book, you go back and you can reread it, and there's always elements of research. It's like when you mentioned about Darren, he's a friend of mine. I've known him for yonks as well, and I'm in one of his books, and it was like, you didn't tell me. He says, I did. I went, you flipping did.
I'm glad you said flipping.
And yes. I'm in that respect. I sometimes think, must not swear, even though I do swear. But it's a nice thing. It's the same wonderful people that keep coming up. You can think like Mike, as an example, with Hull. You can go, boom, that person knows about this.
Yeah.
You've got Scotland and other Hastings, of course. Malcolm, boom.
Yeah, that's right.
There's different people you can go to. It's like the Kinsella brothers, I'm biased, of course, because they're ace.
Yeah, they're lovely. I love the guys. Great guys.
They are lovely, and there's other people that, you're always going to get clashes in this sort of genre. It's just the way it is, unfortunately.
Well, most of the people I've met are really lovely, and, made some good friends of, many people, and it's always good to see them. Always love a good old catch up. That's what I was looking forward to in Hull, but unfortunately it's not going to take place.
I was
anyway.
As well. It's like boo. But basically, David, thank you for doing things like this, because it's lovely that I get to guest present now and again, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
And, no, it is. Not everybody can go on things like this and talk and be coherent as well,
I think
we've had one or two
I think it just kind of just puts a little bit more interest into having you on the show occasionally. It's maybe you should think about doing your own show.
Oh my goodness, I talk absolute, what. To me, I don't want to revisit old ground that somebody like yourself has done, or some of the other gents out there. And I mean that in a good way. To me, it's like, it's dipping in and out, and that's the way I love it.
Yeah.
But it enables me to have wonderful conversations with you.
Yeah.
People like Malcolm and the other guests.
You may notice when I do a show, I do try to make them, I attempt to try and make them a little bit different to, other shows that are going out. Put a bit of humour and stuff in it, but, or trying to go, take the guest in a different direction to what they may have done before. That's my attempt. That's what I try to do anyway. But whether it works, I don't know. But
I think there's only probably one guest that I would never really want to sit and interview again.
Yeah.
Yes, you know who that is. We'll tell Malcolm.
Well, someone can soon work that out now because you've only been on certain ones. But no. No, it's all right. I can chop all this out anyway. Don't worry.
And stop. No, it's like I said. It's to me. I'm educated every time I do it.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, you want to always please, everybody in this field. There's sometimes sadly there's animosity. There's bickering.
Jealousy.
A lot of jealousy. I try to stay away from all that. People can take me or not take me the way they want me. I just say it as it is, folks.
Yeah.
And there's no airs and graces about me. It is what it is.
Yeah, and that's what I like about you, Malcolm. I can see you're just straight, honest. If you've got a bicker with somebody, you'll say it. And it's not just
of course you will. It's Scottish.
Just go off and stab someone in the back. It's.
I'll just play the bagpipes to the rear stage,
Yeah. Oh dear, don't talk about bagpipes. Anyway, Juliet, we better let Malcolm go because I'm sure he's gasping for a beer.
Or a cup of tea.
And the same glass.
Anyway, Malcolm, you take care of yourself. Thank you, Juliet, and we shall leave it there.
Thank you, gents.
Thanks, Malcolm. You have to come back again next year.
Yeah, will do. And thanks again for having me on the show, and I wish you both every success.
And yourself, Malcolm. Thank you very much, and good luck to you. And take care of yourself. You too, Juliet.
Thank you. Thank you, gents.
Good night, all. Thank you for listening. Okay, you've been listening to Paranormal Dimensions on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again next week.
Paranormal Dimensions is as bright and powerful as our celestial star, the sun. And although it's expending thousands of pounds of energy every minute of the day, have no fear. There is plenty left.
Sauchie.
You still can't bloody say it.
Sauchie Hall Street. That's what I'm thinking of. Sauchie.
No, Sauchie.
Sauchie.
No,
it's not. Sauchie.
Oh, okay. Do it phonetically. We're going to have to do it again because it was.
No, anyway, we're not doing that show tonight anyway. So
I'll just drop it in. It'll be like, say the Scottish place.
And I says, not really. I mean, UFOs are a global phenomenon. They're seen at all times of the year. So I'll have to be careful how I say this because I've never seen a noticeable spike in UFO reports during lockdown. Maybe other people have. Admittedly, last October there was a hell of a lot of UFO sightings in the Grangemouth area. So we'll see what happens.
Are you eating a packet of crisps or something? There's a lot of crackling coming over.
Sorry.
Is that you?
It was the dog.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, sorry. Luna and her wisdom.
Sorry, Malcolm.
Sorry.
Sean, why? I haven't got a dog. I'll have to buy a dog now.
It's Luna the Labrador being a mischievous Labrador.
It sounded like you was eating a packet of crisps or something.
She has a habit of bringing things that make a noise. Luckily, she's not brought a squeaky tennis ball, thank God. Because it would have been like, squeak, squeak, and it would have been, can you hear that? And I would have been like, no. So
Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network.